Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 9, 2019 meeting of the Wakefield School Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order and invite everyone to join me as we do in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, the reading of the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next on the agenda is a public comment period. I invite any member of the community who'd like to address the committee on any matter that may not be on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, we shall move along. Student Advisory Council. Our student reps are here this evening. Good evening, ladies. Welcome. Hey.
So I'm Lily Smith, and I'm on the I'm the student representative to the school committee. And
I'm Adriana Manassian, and I'm also on the school committee team.
So the first thing I have is, I think I mentioned this last meeting, that the diversity leaders will be heading to Youth Congress on Friday. And what that is I'm a diversity leader. So what that is, I've never been though. It's a conference in Boston, and we facilitate activities to other schools regarding stereotypes, barriers, and just making people aware of the different issues in our country. And another thing that the diversity leaders are doing, I talked about this last meeting as well, is we're creating the Megan S. Burnett Makerspace. And I know we talked about like when it was going to be done, and the two dates that we have kind of like roughly are May 8th or May 15th, so I can definitely like finalize that soon. And then the Spain students leave Thursday, and those are juniors and seniors, and it's headed on by like the Italian teachers and the Spanish teachers. And the Italian exchange students are already in Italy, and it looks like they're having a really good time based off of all the pictures I've seen.
Plenty of food, I'm sure.
Yeah. Also going on right now, and is upcoming, is VPAD. So a lot of the students in our school are getting ready to go Thursday night, and Friday it's for all the elementary school kids to see. So that includes all the arts, so like music, band, a cappella, multimedia, anything sort that has to do with the arts. So a lot of the students are excited also because they get to miss a day of school to show all the kids what they've been doing. But a lot of them are also excited to see and like show off what they've been working on. So they're all really excited to go. Another big thing is the AP tests are coming this May, in the beginning of May. So everybody's trying to start studying and getting ready to see if they can get any credits for college. This can transfer over to sports. So the boys varsity lacrosse team defeated Malden Catholic on Saturday with a score of 8-2. And the boys varsity tennis defeated Swampscott from 4-2, so that was really good. And then girls varsity track also won against Burlington, and then the next meet is home on Thursday. And a lot of the sports seem to be getting to be postponed due to like all the weather and sports. So we'll check Mr. Kent's Twitter for all of that. Else?
I think that's it. I feel like stuff's been kind of slow recently due to the term starting and like vacation coming this week, so we don't have as much this week.
Yeah. So yeah.
How did MCAS go?
I think
that was good, I think. I was just happy I got to sleep in.
I know. Yeah. I know. People seem to be like we obviously used the Chromebooks for the first time, right? So I think it was a new change because we never got to do that. So I think it was different for them, but I don't think we didn't hear any complaints about it. It was already pretty new, but it seemed to work well. So yeah.
Report cards this week?
I
Are they this week?
I'm asking.
I feel like they're after.
I know the term ended Friday, and
I think
I don't think they come out this week. I think it's next week,
That's vacation.
or the week we get back.
We're not in charge of it. And Lily, I know you're a junior, right?
Yes.
And
I'm a junior
you're
also.
a junior, oh, okay. I was just curious about if there's been any talk about the senior after, or the senior prom, you know, the party afterwards,
Oh,
if there's
sure.
been, you know, any sort of talk about that.
I don't think I've heard that much about it. I'm pretty sure it's at Dave and Buster's again this year.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was, you know, any chatter among the students, you know, saying they were gonna go, or
Yeah.
they were,
I
any of
know
that
it was
stuff.
based off of like what I heard about last year, it was a real hit. So
Yeah.
I feel like there will be a pretty good representation of students at it this year.
Okay.
I've heard some seniors talking about it, and I know they had to start getting like numbers in, and like who's going to prom, and obviously who's not, and who's going after. But it seemed like so many people enjoyed it last year, and they were like skeptical about it last year. I know because it was the first time, but people like seemed to really enjoy it. So I think there'll definitely be a lot of students going.
Thank you.
Great.
Perfect.
Anything else?
I think
Nope,
that's
I
it.
think we're all
That's
set.
great. No, that was great. Great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, lady.
Have a safe April vacation. Okay, moving on. Item 6, the consent agenda. We have a motion, Mr. Callahan.
Move the school committee approve the minutes of the March 26, 2019 school committee meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Budget items. Mr.
Hi.
Piffling.
Good evening, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your packet is the business reports for the month, through the month of March 2019. Nothing spectacular to report. The salary lines continue to stay where they are, a little bit in the negative, but again, that goes to some of the new positions we hired this year to support some of our special education students and some other programming needs that we had. Other than that, there's really nothing dramatic to report. Everything's held pretty steady. Transportation is below the line now in the negative, but that's, I think we caught up on some of our POs and adjusting some POs, so closing out some stuff at the end of the year, making sure everything's in the accurate numbers, so we should be good there. Other than that, I really don't have much to report. I feel like a kind of a broken record up here every month for the last couple of months, but everything seems to be encumbered, and we seem to be in a decent position this year for a change, so it's good to report.
So you can keep that a broken record month after month after month.
For the next 3 months, I'll be
pleased to
I'll
hear
be
that,
very
Mr.
happy, yeah,
Piffling.
no doubt.
Any questions for Mr. Piffling? All right, continue.
In the grants area, everything's status quo. We did get a slight increase in our Title I grant, very slight. Slight increase in our Title II grant, again, very slight. And a little bit better increase in our 240 grant. That's the IDEA grant. So that's just mid-year changes from DESI when they have extra money, or the federal government has extra money in the grants. They redistribute it to the district. So we had to apply for those grants or those amendments, amend those grants to get those extra funds. Doesn't amount to much, but every little bit helps, you know. So especially if we can charge off a little bit more of a salary, especially special education para salary, because we hired a few extra of those this year. So it's good to have the money when we can get it. We don't turn it away. Revolving accounts, everything looks good. Building rental, we're still trying to catch up on that one, but everything else looks to be in really good shape from our revolving account standpoint, opposed to last year, or compared to last year, I should say. Last year was in really good shape also, but this year even better. So again, I don't. It looks like a big agenda. I don't really want to go through item by item unless anybody has any specific questions.
Any question for Mike on grants or revolving accounts?
That's great.
Okay.
We do have payroll warrants tonight, payroll warrant 37 and 39.
Mr. Callahan.
Move the school committee approve payroll warrants 37 and 39 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously.
And we have two gifts tonight, one from the Walton school teachers, Walton PTO for the Walton school teachers, and one for the for coaches for the Wakefield High School boys hockey.
Mr. Callahan.
Move the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $1,500 from the Walton School PTO for the Walton School teachers to purchase supplies for the classrooms.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
And move the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $4,000 from the Friends of the Wakefield Memorial High School boys hockey for stipends to pay for 2 assistant coaches for the FY19 winter season.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
And my last item for tonight, I'm gonna actually defer to, topic 8, 8B for the superintendent, so when the superintendent gets to that section, we'll cover that at that point, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. That is fine with me. 8D?
Nine.
9B.
9B, okay, very nice, thank you.
Did I say 8?
You're okay.
You did.
Speaking of taking things out of order, we have a couple of staff members with us tonight under superintendent reports, and without objection from the committee, I'd like to ask the superintendent to proceed to that item, which is
Yes.
item 9D.
Right. And so I would like to invite up to the table Andrew Cedrone, our district behavioral and mental health coordinator, and Jennifer Hart, our middle school counselor, to talk about the work that they're doing and the supports that are available in the district.
Well, thanks for having us.
Welcome, good
Appreciate the
evening.
invite. I'm going to hand out a couple of these, pass a few of these around, it's just little bullet points, some talking points that Jen and I have. As Doug said, I'm the mental health coordinator for the district, as well as the Upper House School Adjustment Counselor at Galvin. And, Jen and I are here to kind of give a brief summary of kind of what our department's been up to over the last 6 or 8 years, and kind of what direction we're heading, as we're, I think most schools are realizing that social emotional learning and mental health support are quickly becoming the forefront of, need in many school districts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hart. I'm a school psychologist, but in my role at the Galvin, I work more as a counselor and do less testing and kind of reaching out more to staff and to families and working with kind of all children. I'm also a volunteer for the crisis team for NEMLIC, and I represent Wakefield, which has been fantastic that I got the support of both the town and the school system to go represent if there's a tragedy in any local district. So I work primarily with the younger students now at the Galvin, pretty much 5th and some of 6th graders, and I work with the TLC program, which is our program that that works with students that do have social emotional issues and are struggling, throughout the school day. I've been in Wakefield for about 10 years now, and things have dramatically changed in this area in terms of the support from both the school and from the community, in terms of the significant social emotional needs that we're seeing from our student body. And to be completely honest, we kind of came a little bit to gloat a little bit in terms of how we're so proud of some of the statistics in terms of through the YRBS, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, how we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of teenagers who were experiencing serious suicidal ideation or seriously considering suicide. And unfortunately, about an hour ago, we received kind of some raw data from this year, and unfortunately, the statistics are trending back up again, which may not be surprising to many of you based on the fact that I know that Channel 5 had a big story about the emergency rooms doubling in terms of the number of children going to the emergency room for help with suicidal ideation and self-harm. So, but just in terms of a little historical perspective, and I'm sure some of you have a lot more perspective than I do, in the 10 years that I was here, I started and there were just 3 school psychologists in the middle school. That number has doubled since I started, and initially the 3 of us, the 3 psychologists, were doing all the testing, all the crisis intervention, all the paperwork. We were the team chairs. I mean, we were doing it, all of it. For 1,200 students was a pretty impossible job. So we basically were dealing with IEP students and then doing crisis management And it was really hard to get to that kind of underlayer of kids that were really having a difficult time. And what has been fabulous, based on the support from all of you and also from administration, which has been fantastic, we've doubled the social emotional team at the Galvin, which has included, Andrew Cedrone, Bonnie Warren, and also Erin Ficacello, who's our team chairperson for the entire school. So what that's done is it's allowed us to do so much more work and reach so many more students, which is not only fulfilling as professionals, but we feel like we're genuinely helping kids. And we want to talk about kind of some of the initiatives that we've been doing, based on the fact that we've had a lot of shifts and a lot of support in supporting and increasing, our numbers. So.
Yes, this is my first year in the position of mental health coordinator. I'll be honest, I'm really enjoying myself. I see a lot of potential and opportunity in initiatives in the district. We're really lucky to have the support of Doug, Lyons, who's, fantastically kind of places, again, social emotional learning in the forefront, of the district, which is great. I meet regularly, about monthly, every other month, with our K through 12 student support services team. So you're talking all of our school counselors and our psychologists. We get together for kind of a PLC or a mini PD session. A couple of things that I've put together this year is we had the director of Malden DCF come in and give us a kind of Q&A advice on filing 51As and when to file and when not to file. So it was a really nice small PD we had. We've also had the NAN project, who Jen will talk a little bit more about down the road, about suicide prevention and education in the district. We recently partnered up with them, so they've come into our monthly meetings as well. And actually tomorrow we're having a representative from Elliott Human Services come in to give all of our staff, K through 12, QPR training, which is a questioning response training for staff around suicide prevention and awareness. So we'll be able to put together a really good small, impactful PD sessions for the K through 12 student support services team. Some other things that we've done in the district, obviously, Kim and Doug, over the years have put together the district strategy for social emotional learning, which is what we kind of use to drive all of our interventions in the district. Also, things like the Community Mental Health Forum that was recently put on, and Parent University, where a lot of our student support service team members are able to interact with the community and put our faces out there in terms of small sessions. I did a Parent University on relationships. I think in the past we've done one on social emotional learning. So those types of opportunities of just getting out there in the community are really fantastic. Similarly, with the kids in the building at Galvin, but not just Galvin, I know at the high school, I know you were mentioning diversity leaders. We have the peer leaders at Galvin, and we're going Friday as well to the Youth Congress in Boston, so we'll see you there. We also just started this year a Pride Club at the middle school level. There are many LGBTQ support clubs at high schools across the state and across the country. However, it's very rare to have one at the middle school level. But we decided that the need was there, so Bonnie Warren and I piloted it in the upper house, and it's been pretty successful. And lastly, we do a lot of the trainings for the WPS staff. We've had Mental Health 101 taught to hundreds of our staff now. Kelly Tobine heads that up, our Galvin Middle School school resource officer, in coordination with Donna Kosick from Elliott, and she's been training staff on kind of mental health topics that they'd see in the classroom.
When I started at the Galvin, the three of us were kind of on an island by ourselves. We were pretty isolated. And what's transpired is really forming a lot of connections and relationships with our community partners, which has been so helpful to us as professionals, but more importantly, it's really helped our students. So in terms of, actually a few years ago at the superintendent's conference, we did a presentation. I went as a representative for the school, and we actually talked about the depth of our community partnerships and how much it has helped our student body in terms of the social emotional well-being. When we first had kids that were experiencing suicidal ideation, we used to send families to the emergency room. And now, based on the relationships that we've formed, and they are present a lot at our meetings, and there's been a lot of communication we're able to call people that we know that we're friends with now based on our relationships, and they're responding to the school, which is much better for children instead of going to, wait 10 hours at an emergency room, things like that. So we've also partnered. We recently got a grant. They chose the Galvin because we're very enthusiastic, I think, about social emotional learning, and it was through Winchester Hospital, and it's for the NAN project. And what they're going to do is come in, probably the gateway we're talking about is through our youth action team. And what we're going to be doing is having some of their young adults who have struggled with both substance abuse and mental health issues come into some of the classes. We're going to be meeting at the beginning of May with the youth action team and NAN representatives to talk about and brainstorm with the students to empower them in terms of how they feel we can really utilize this grant. So we really want to empower some of our students, and we're kind of excited about this new venture. And based on some of the statistics we're kind of seeing and the trends that we're seeing, it's really important in terms of social emotional well-being and really supporting our students who are struggling from an emotional perspective. As you all know too, the William James, the referral service has been implemented based on support from both the town and the school, which is a fantastic resource for our families. What we're finding often is that we would suggest counseling for kids, and there's really no one out there. And the short list that we had before, all those counselors would be full. So this is a great resource for our families to be able to reach out to someone when they're in crisis and share their, all of their information in terms of insurance and whether they'd like a male or female and kind of what type of issues their child is struggling with. And that has been a huge support to families, and I'm really excited to be able to offer that to families. Something else that also has done for us is that when we're doing things like the SOS in terms of, actually Doug Lyons and I met this summer and I wrote a pilot for the suicide awareness and doing a mental health screening with our teens. And we just piloted it with the 8th grade. But what having this type of service allows us to do is do a screening like that and actually have an immediate response for families. So if it's a crisis, we turn it to Elliot because we've got this amazing rapport with them now. Or if it's a child that we see maybe at risk and we don't want it to get to such a significant level of depression, we refer them to the interface, the referral service, which allows us to get to more children, as I was talking about earlier. So we've also made other connections with DPH, with NAMI, with so many different agencies that have been providing volunteer opportunities and many different opportunities for both the staff and for the children. So it's been fantastic. As you know, we do the mental health screenings. We're doing the YRBS, SBIRT, and SOS. And we're hoping to expand SOS to the high school next year. We did it, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, just with the 8th grade this year, and it was highly successful. We were able to identify a group of students that really did need support, outside of the school, but it also allows us to intervene at the school level as well, because some of these children we were unaware of that they were struggling with social emotional issues, because often some of the kids that may be anxious or may be depressed are really internalizing those issues, so they're not kids who are necessarily getting poor grades or acting out. So some of these screening tools and some of these relationships that we're making with families and with the community is really getting to some of those children that are struggling quietly.
So a lot of really good things happening, a lot of really great stuff to get excited about in a really short period of time here we wanted to talk about. But so one of the things I quickly did early this fall when I first took on the position of the mental health coordinator was to try to strengthen our online presence for the Wakefield Public Schools Student Support Services team. Again, I really had acknowledged and realized that there were so many fantastic things going on in the district. There were so many great members of the team that were doing different things, and I wanted to kind of not reinvent the wheel and get everything into one place. And then our kind of next stage is to really market that website and that web resource and get it out to families and other community members. So I'm going to do a really brief walkthrough of the website with you all here, if you don't mind.
Please.
This is kind of the About Us page. Again, a lot of it is for lack of a better term, marketing the Student Support Services team. I feel like when we were all younger, the Student Support Services team almost had a stigma attached to it, that we were people that, only, challenging kids worked with, or maybe that was only for special ed. But we really want to change that idea that we're here for all of the kids in the building. So we kind of put everyone's face and what department they're working in and what grades. We've got the whole Galvin staff right up there looking good with our school pictures. And again, we go through every school in the district, and the student support services team. So again, that's the psychologists, the school counselors, the SROs, and the nurses. That's kind of how our team is comprised up. Again, as Jen said, one of the biggest requests we get from families is how and when and where do I access mental health support outside of school? Obviously, we feel that's a really important piece. You know, we can only do so much from the school's point of view. We've only got the kids during the day. But for the families that are looking for other outside resources, we have links to the William James referral line, as well as, you know, online psychologist and school counselor locators. Links to apply for Mass Health as a supplemental insurance, and then referrals to Elliott. So this is kind of, again, a how-to guide, so we can just refer families directly to this website. We briefly do a little bit of curriculum here. We do school-related issues and mental health issues. We just kind of target the main issues that we see in school as school counselors. So anything from ADHD to divorce and family stress, all the way over to, on the mental health side of things, anxiety, depression, trauma-affected kids, eating disorders and suicide, things like that. Just some information for families that are curious on different topics with links to web resources. On the social emotional learning link, we go right into the strategy for social emotional health and learning, you know, put out by the superintendent. And then also some more links to SEL kind of competencies, mainly by Castle, which is out of Chicago, which is kind of the leading social emotional learning model. But again, links to those different resources. You know, we work pretty closely with Catherine Dengra and the Wake Up team, and also Mystic Valley Public Health Coalition, and they just obviously put out some fantastic resources, online articles, videos, all about substance use, how to talk to kids about vaping, marijuana, alcohol, all those things. And again, we're putting it all in one space for families to look into, and also really for educators, you know, in the district. Power of relationships, this is an area that the Department of Public Health sent Brian Robertson from the high school and myself out to Minnesota to get trained in this this kind of competency from the Search Institute. It's about developmental frameworks of relationships with kids and how that the number one sign of resiliency in kids is having one trusted adult in your life growing up. And so this is kind of a narrative we're going to be working on with the public schools, just in general in the district and all the educators about how to become a trusted adult for kids. Crisis management, again, the list goes on, but mainly we use Elliott, you know, Human Services and their mobile crisis team. That's our kind of biggest recommendation, but again, we have a lot of that information here. As Jen mentioned, we do 3 different screenings in the district for mental health and risk, and so we've got the YRBS, SBIRT, and SOS, and I actually put links right up to their web pages and actually samples of the screeners there. We get a lot of parent questions about what the screenings look like, what they ask, all the information about that. So again, we figured complete transparency, put it right up on the website so family, all the admin refers parents right to this. A couple more things, we've got community partners, which again is a long list of all these organizations that we really rely so heavily on with support, you know, kind of all in the area, because it really does, you know, clearly take a village to work with the kids, especially in middle school. Resources, this is just a page where anytime someone in the district has a good article or a resource, I kind of put it up here online. As you can see, screen and social media addiction is kind of one of the biggest topics. It's obviously a very hot topic right now. But if you scroll down even lower, I have all these tools. I've got cell phone contracts. I've got different apps on how to block Wi-Fi in your home for certain times of the day so kids can do homework, different Wi-Fi routers. This is a token timer so families can set limits around Wi-Fi usage and things like that. Because what we basically do is we're getting all of the requests, the repetitive requests we get from families around support. We're trying to put it all in one area so we can always refer back, you know, all in one spot. And lastly, we've got kind of upcoming events, which is just our recent Community Mental Health Forum, as well as we've got you know, the ADL Regional Director coming for the Human Rights Commission, and some other notes there. So that was the kind of quick version of the website, but we're constantly updating it and adding to it. Like I said, I think it's our goal to get as much information as possible for the community and for the educators as well, because teachers love having this as a resource. So if a parent emails them or calls them with some questions, they can refer them directly to the website, as well as get information on who to contact if they have more questions.
Anyone
So
have any
I'd like to
questions?
thank you for coming. One of the things that I would like to just share with the committee is that, Jennifer graciously said, they were selected or participated in the NAN project because, at Galvin, we were quote-unquote enthusiastic. Well, that's really not the whole story, right? That we have gotten this grant, and we're participating with a lot of our partners because of the relationships that Jennifer and Andrew have established. I think outside agencies quickly recognize that the counseling that they're providing and the expertise that they're providing, not only at a school level but at a district level, is really just something so significant that they want to be affiliated and partner with them as individuals. So I think that what you're hearing is really a story about not only our work as a district, but their accomplishments as a counseling team. And I couldn't be more proud and to support your work. And I can't thank you enough for that. So thank you
so much.
Any questions for the team? Yes, Amy.
So thank you for the presentation. And I just think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And I think the kids and the families of Wakefield are very lucky to have, such a professional team that is ready to help anybody who needs it. So it's just very impressive, and I feel very grateful to have you guys at the Galvin. So I guess I have a whole bunch of things that I was going to try and ask. Firstly, when kids are transitioning to the Galvin, is there, are kids kind of not flagged, but, is there communication between the teachers and the staff at the elementary level to the Galvin, and then when they transition to the high school? I mean, it almost would be amazing if we had your whole group at each level, so it's like the support seems so strong at Galvin. Does that transition to the high school, and then vice versa, coming from, the elementary to the Galvin?
It does. On one hand, one of our goals, I think, is streamlining the support K through 12. So there's no dips or valleys or peaks of support for, say, one individual child with a specific presentation going through the district K through 12, that their support is kind of, the same all the way through, so we want to avoid those ups and downs.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions we do get is around 4-5 transition and 8-9 transition to high school, around just overall supports.
Yeah.
So it's something we're always working on streamlining. I think tomorrow I'm coming to the high school with the upper house counselors to meet with the high school special ed and the high school student support services team.
Right.
And we have a kind of document that we go through with kids that are in special ed, kids that are not in special ed, kids that we have different concerns about, whether they're academic, behavioral, social, emotional, things like that. And I know Jen is much more involved in the 5th grade, because she's primarily 5th grade. She's much more involved on the other end of that.
Great.
Right, and we similarly, we do the same type of thing, that we meet with the school psychologists from the elementary school, and they identify, because they work with kids similar to what I do. They work with kids that are both on, IEPs, 504, and general ed kids. So we do have those conversations about
Great.
about all students. Of course, it would be nice to have even more time to do that.
Right.
Every year we try to kind of improve like what we do and improve that communication, because
Right.
time is always, a struggle.
Yep.
But we try to create those spaces as much as possible.
Excellent. So just one more question. So if you have a child who isn't on like an IEP or a 504, but they present issues, and the parents may use the resources here,
Sure.
and it turns out that they need to get some sort of services at the Galvin. If their schedule is established, when do they have the time to do that? Like, what's the process?
Absolutely. So, we get kids referred to us for a million different reasons and in a million different methods, right? We have student-to-student referrals, parent-to-student referrals, teacher referrals about students, and all those types of things. And what we kind of do is we put on actually the beginning of our website, we talk a little bit about that as a district, as a school, we reserve the right to meet with all students to help support them in a social emotional nature. If any need or challenge becomes persistent or pervasive, then we would reach out to the families to kind of come up with a plan.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if a student was on a 504 or an IEP, that
Yeah.
plan would already be delineated out for us. But if they're not, we may establish just a regular check-in plan. I see a lot of kids in gen ed just on a regular basis coming to a lunch group or things like that. They certainly don't have to be on an IEP
Yep.
or a 504 to access our team.
Right.
Jenna Lee Coyne, the AP at Galvin, recently started last year the RISE process, which is a referral process into special ed. So if anyone is struggling academically or behaviorally, it's a process that a teacher or a family can request to start.
Okay.
And it's kind of gathering some data, doing some light testing and observations, setting some goals, and moving forward. It's a pre-referral process, basically to special ed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, and thank you again. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
Yes, Ann?
Thank you. I love hearing all about this. Part of it is the kind of work I do, so I really appreciate the effort that you have put in. It feels a little bit like Galvin is the hub, right, of this, of social emotional learning. And so I'm trying to figure out if it's just my perception, because you just have like super exceptional people who work there, not that.
That's what it is, it's just us.
Not that there aren't others,
Yeah.
you know, in other,
Of course.
in other parts of the district, but there's just a lot of innovation happening at Galvin, and I'm wondering two things. One is it because it's middle school, and middle school is like just super hard, you know, that you have to be on your toes with this population? Is it, you know, is it the building, you know, is it just the facility? Does it allow for, you know, the kinds of interactions that maybe you weren't having, you know, Jen, before when you were in the other building? And if it's sort of a little bit of both, like how can this kind of work be more readily replicated throughout the district?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I do think that middle school, you know, stereotypically comes with the baggage of social emotional learning. We are the biggest school in the district, right? We're larger than the high school. I think the middle school is larger than the high school technically. By a smidge. We're one of the larger middle schools in the state, I would say, probably because we're 5 through 8. So we do, you know, see the bulk of the social emotional challenges. Obviously, as you would imagine, as kids get older, they may share less and less with adults, you know, kind of in their network. I think that's natural. And then when they get in more heavily into sports and their kind of college prep and, you know, college search, that's what a lot of the kind of guidance department at the high school deals with. I also do know that, you know, at the high school, they're hopefully potentially adding a adjustment counselor this year, which I think those are the types of bodies that are needed. I feel like the guidance staff, more often than not, gets bogged down with college applications and scheduling and things like that. And what's great about Galvin is that we don't get bogged down with those types of things. So our student support services staff, we've been lucky enough to have 3 counselors in the building and 2 psychologists. So we're all available to the kids, you know, for a bulk of our schedule. And again, innately, because the kids are middle school kids, I think that we have an easier ability to form relationships with them than I guess would potentially happen in high school.
No, I
agree with that?
think I absolutely agree with that, because we have kids that come visit us every day, you know, so, and those are kids that may not even be on any type of formal, you know, IEP or a 504, is that they just need that touchstone. So we do a lot of that type of work, and like Andrew was saying, I think that they're so receptive and so ready for, you know, some, you know, like an adult that they trust, you know, which I think is so critical as like all the research supports. It truly is a protective factor. So I absolutely agree with that research, and I think that we're so lucky that we have children and families that trust us and they come to us, because we get referrals from other parents, we get friends of friends, you know, we just seem to kind of scoop up a lot of kids at this age because they are so receptive. We're also really trying to be collaborative as a team, and I think that coming together even once a month does make a difference in terms of the meeting that Andrew does chair. Also in terms of the SOS, we are collaborating with the high school, and we had a fantastic team that did this pilot program, and we had many professionals from the high school that joined with us, along with some of our community partners, Catherine Dingra and Donna Cossack, who is the director of Elliott, the crisis team. So I feel like it is, you know, as a district, we're really trying to be collaborative at, you know, at different levels. So next year, they came and did the pilot with us. our hope and our vision for next year is that we come up here, come up to the high school, and that we support, our colleagues at the high school and do, a similar mental health screening. So we're really trying to come together as a district, and I think that that type of collaboration is what really makes us stronger. So.
Great, thank you.
Greg?
Thank you. Just adding my thanks as well, and, this will be my 6th year on the school committee, and I remember when I started, we were talking about so many of the things that you have now realized, the community partnerships. We talked a lot, I remember we talked a lot about the role of screening, how important that is, the staff development, the working with the teachers, so it's so encouraging to see the progress that we've made as a district and that you have all contributed so much to. I just had a couple of questions. I was thinking, Jen, when you were mentioning the shift in your role as a school psychologist, as from a focus on testing to a focus on treatment, if you will, or that former role is the more traditional school psychologist role, right? And it made me think about the whole sort of structure, the staff structure that you've built in place. And so maybe, Andrew, if you could talk about like how, just a kind of a broad overview of how you think about the staff structure, the combination of the school psychologists, the counselors working in tandem with the staff, and how that all works as a sort of an organism, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm kind of a overly organized guy, so I always want to have. I always want to have this staff is working with these kids. This staff is these kids. These kids. But there's always the buts, right? There's always the but. This kid, would really greatly benefit from a male counselor, or this student may, has a really tight relationship with this staff member, so you don't want to transfer them to someone else. So there's always going to be those what ifs and those but moments with the kids. But for the most part, we've got our 3 counselors and our 2 school psychologists. So Caroline Boyd and Kate Hersman are split up, lower house and upper house, and they do all the testing for. Caroline does the testing for the lower house, 5th and 6th. And Kate does the testing for the 7th and 8th.
Okay.
They also see students on IEPs with social emotional goals. They don't see all of the students on IEPs with social emotional goals. I have a handful, Jen's got a handful, and Bonnie has a handful as well. But we constantly work collaborative as a team. We actually put out it was actually Kate's idea, we put out at Galvin Student Support email address. So it goes to all of us.
Yeah.
So if any parent in the district or any staff member of the district has a question about a student or whatever, it'll go to all of us. And then we kind of screen it of who it goes to. Or are you seeing this person? Are you in that grade? Because we do have them set up where Bonnie and I are the upper house. Jen is just grade 5. And then all 3 of our counselors split up grade 6. So it's certainly not the cleanest delineation of things. But again, I think it's a combination of knowing each other's strengths and playing to them.
And
we all have our certain styles, and I think we complement each other really well.
Right. Thank you. And my other question was, I know we have some of the health staff here too. And I was thinking, I know in other districts, helping students cope with things like anxiety and depression often is coordinated with the health and wellness curriculum, things like mindfulness, meditation, those kinds of things. Could you talk a little bit about how your team is working with Brendan Kent's team, and if that is an area that we can continue to develop?
Absolutely. I've always thought it was a natural partnership,
Yep.
the Student Support Services team and the Health Department. I just think it makes complete sense, right? And I know the Health Department recently got a formal curriculum. The Michigan model is the one that they're using, right? So I've looked over that with Brendan before. And they do a unit every year, I believe it's in the 7th grade. Melissa Tarnas and Chris Tolios, the 7th grade health teachers, do a unit on stress busters. So it's about coping strategies and managing stress. And historically, they've had a representative from the Samaritans come in and do a talk on suicide prevention and suicide awareness.
Yeah.
And one of our student support service team members always joins the health class for that unit and kind of co-teaches the unit with the Samaritans. And it's always been our goal to do more of that, because it's just such a natural entry point for our student support services staff. Even just getting into health classes more and getting our faces in front of those students more will increase the likelihood of them coming to check in with us. I mean, I remember a very specific time where after I got into the health class, I had a student come up to me who I'd never previously met, but he recognized me just from that health class, and he asked me a few questions about some type of support. So it's a kind of direct cause and effect that can only be beneficial.
Right.
And that entry point, the reason that we started to try to kind of push ourselves into the cafeteria, into health classes, and was based on some data that actually came through the youth risk survey. And we were concerned about the number of children that could not identify a trusted adult, which is such, as we mentioned earlier, such an important. So what we started to do, similar to what the Dan Project, what we're trying to do is really destigmatize mental health issues and to normalize our presence in the building. So we've really tried to, as Andrew was saying, we did stations and we had kids come and try different like stress release. We were just trying to figure out ways that we can get more FaceTime with children, but it's, like I said, it's always like a time crunch. But we did try to, kind of work with the team, and we're also working with Melissa Tarness, who's a health teacher, in terms of the youth action team, and really trying to marry those two in terms of the NAN project and some of the funding and some of the support that we're going to receive with our youth action team, which is through the health teacher, which is, I think, will be a nice, a nice, kind of collaboration again. I think it's all about collaboration because everyone's short on time and money and all of those things. It's really
and it really is natural, and a child, an adolescent, much more likely to be able to overcome things like anxiety or depression if they've got a good night's sleep and are have good nutrition and all of those things. So they really are connected. And thank you for using the term destigmatize, because I think when you did the presentation on the website, that's really what all of this is about, and that's, I think, central to the success of what you're doing. So thank you.
Chris?
Thank you again. Looking over your bullets, I think you do win the prize for acronyms.
I was thinking that myself. I'm like, sorry about that.
Andrew, your title's District Mental Health Coordinator, but
Yes,
how
correct.
is your time split? It sounds like you spend most of your time at the Galvin.
Right, I'm a full-time school adjustment counselor at the Galvin, and the coordinator position is for the district. So I meet with the district K through 12 team regularly, and I'll come up to the high school every now and then and visit. And I meet with Andrea Barone, the elementary behavior coach, pretty regularly. But it's definitely a focus of my my kind of future is what I'd like to kind of get more involved in all levels of the school.
It sounds like that might be something we should be working towards, is having somebody who has a full grasp of the whole district, and has time to do that. Because I'm looking at a lot of the things you've been talking about, and I'm sure it's just because it's your perspective of where you spend your time.
Absolutely.
But if I just glanced at this, I would almost get the feeling that there was a bigger problem with suicide things at the middle school than there is the high school. And I'm not sure that that's probably the case.
No, I don't think it is.
So is the data similar at the high school, or is it?
I would say yes. I'd have to check the YRBS numbers, but I definitely agree that kind of working with all levels, again, because the middle school is the largest and that's where I'm housed, it's kind of naturally where I work out of the most. But I think one of my future goals is definitely to work more with the high school and more at the elementary level.
Okay.
But I would say the numbers are probably similar at the high school.
Because just to my unprofessional viewpoint.
Sure.
It like if you just listen to the news or whatever, it seems like suicide is a bigger problem in high school than it is in middle school in general, and that would be a concern,
And I think that goes back to what Andrew's saying in terms of kids coming to us, and it's something that the reason that I met with Doug Lyons this summer was to talk about this mental health screening. It's because we really hear that from children a lot. So it's part of sometimes our days, our weeks, you know what I mean? We do a lot of crisis intervention and a lot of outreach to families. And I think it's the fact that kids are so receptive and so willing to talk to us at this age. So I think that's probably the reason that I did, kind of reach out and want to talk about potentially piloting a mental health screening, because it's something we live all the time.
And I'm sure there's a lot to be said for, if you intervene early, then you won't have the later problem. I get that, but it's just, I'd be interested to hear more of additional data from how it compares middle school and high school.
The numbers just came out literally today with the middle school. I'm not sure when the high school is taking the YRBS, probably later this month.
It's later, yeah.
Probably in about a month or so. Catherine Dingra.
When Catherine comes in, it's always a stunning.
Yeah, I was gonna say she puts it together so nicely.
She does a great job.
Well, I leave depressed that day.
I know.
It's a scary night,
Yeah.
honestly, so, thank you.
Yes, Colleen.
I also just want to applaud your efforts, and I'm just amazed. I've worked with Jen a little bit at how far you've come in a really short time, and it's just everything you've gone through, the website and all of the resources that I, sort of pulled together with always the support of the district here, even years ago, is just laid out so systematically, and not just for someone who it was very apparent, but for people who it's not so apparent, and for those, like you taught, the silent, kids and students and families that are struggling, that don't necessarily have the supports built into their day. It's just amazing. Get a little emotional, but I also wanted to ask, as the conversation has increased and your programs have increased, and obviously we hear from our peer leaders here about the work that they're doing. Do you find that the conversation and sort of just the student environment is more accepting, and that students are helping each other, not just our peer leaders, but within the class, and, I have a couple examples in my head that I've seen, but I feel like the more that you talk about this and the more that it is, kids feel like, I felt like that too. It's not just maybe this person on IEP, like Amy was saying, it is all of them are going through it at some point. I remember my son saying about skills that he learned back in elementary school, and then he got to middle school and maybe they were talking about it in health class, and he's like, I already learned all that. And he goes, but I don't understand why we didn't all learn it.
Yeah.
And so this is what you're speaking to, and I just was wondering if you continue to see improvement in the conversation among our students with acceptance and just them helping each other.
I do, absolutely. I think, I work primarily with the upper house kids, 7th and 8th grade, and I do, I always, in every conversation I have, I'm always trying to normalize social emotional challenges, normalize any mental health concerns, normalize disabilities, normalize, mixed different family situations, whether they're divorces or single parent and things like that, in all of my conversations. And I really see myself as basically full modeling those conversations for our kids.
Right.
And, I think we really, as a team, try to identify student leaders in the building to kind of represent us. And that's kind of the language that I use with some of my upper house kids. If we have a peer conflict, whether there's something going on, I will directly tell them, I'm relying on you to go out there and be that kind of ambassador of kind of doing the right thing, to the other kids, because once that spreads, that's how it's going to kind of have effect on a larger community of the students. Students will listen to us, sure, a little bit, maybe not, but they'll always listen to each other or the kids they see as leaders in their grade. So that's kind of what we try to target as much as possible. More often than not, if I have the opportunity, maybe I have a 7th grader in my office dealing with some issue around dating that they're frustrated about, maybe some drama issue, and if I see an 8th grader walking by saying hi, I say, hey, come here, hop in. You remember, this happened to you 2 years ago. Come on in, you remember, right? And I can use other students. And that type of community building, to me, goes a very long way. And that's fantastic. That's the type of stuff that I really like to do to work on the bigger picture.
And I think it also is different at the upper house
It
versus
is,
the
yeah,
lower
it
house.
definitely is.
For me, I've seen a significant increase in the number of kids that are dragging their friends in to see me.
Yeah.
You need to talk to Mrs. Hart. You can trust Mrs. Hart.
Yeah.
Those type of things. So I've seen a dramatic increase in both hearing from parents, but also kids taking care of kids, which
Yes.
I love to see. And of course, I always really like give kids a lot of, kudos, and, I'm so proud of you for being a really good friend and taking care of your friends. So I think the more, as Andrew's saying, that we encourage kids and they know that we're really receptive to help all kids, I think it sends a pretty strong message. And kids respond,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is really nice.
It's really a
So,
culture, and, we're
Yeah.
lucky
Yeah.
to have great, APs and principal and, teachers.
Absolutely.
I was in an event last night with Senator Lewis and Representative Broder. It was sort of kind of focused around our funding formula, but the big theme of the night was this topic, and I said to Doug just before our meeting tonight that more of the districts there, I was so proud to sit there and know what we have in place, and we can always improve, but we are far beyond some of the other districts, and it was really sad to hear the lack of supports that they have, not because they don't want them, but because they don't have the funding for it, and they just haven't been maybe as innovative and progressive. So I just want our community to understand how fortunate we are, and that we don't, stay here in our, acceptance of, okay, we're good now, but we just keep improving. And I'm just so proud of our district for putting social emotional health at the forefront. So
Absolutely.
so appreciated.
And I have to say that I think that a lot of the initiatives that we're talking about, like the SOS, I think that pretty much cost like the amount for pizzas for to be.
Yeah.
Right.
That was pretty much
Right.
all
Right.
that cost to
Right.
do that. The screening was free, the training was free. It's something that it was just the support of, Doug Lyons, allowing us to use the 5-part series
Right.
to do professional development. And Andrew and I organized it and ran that training to support staff, getting trained in SOS. And so it really didn't cost the district any more than literally like pizzas
Right.
to
The
that was it.
support. Yeah.
That was the expense of doing a mental health screening that we're able to really make a difference in some kids' lives. I followed up with some of the kids that screened at a very high risk, and I legitimately feel like that screening allowed us to get to some kids we never would have talked to, and they're getting help, and it's really changed the trajectory of their lives. So I think things like that don't cost a lot of money, but they're incredibly important, and it really just is support from administration and from the community to allow us to kind of be creative and think outside the box.
Absolutely.
So-
Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
RJ? Oh, no, I thought you were not, Doug.
We all talked enough.
So again, I'd just like to say thank you. I would also like to just let the committee know, in regard to Ann's questions about, the middle school is the hub. They're staffed in a way and they're doing some very special work. But in our budget, we have 3.5 FTE that are kind of coming in to support direct contact, social emotional support for students, right? And that's going to affect us pre-K from Doyle all the way up to the high school, right? The high school's going to have a new adjustment counselor. So we're going to have a new audience and new supports and a new vertical team, which Andrew will be working with. So I think there will be more to report. And, as I've said this, and I know I sound like a little like a broken record, social emotional support is not something new on the plate. It is the plate. If kids can't kind of come to school and feel safe and engage in their learning, we can't get much done. We can't expect to get much done. And so that is kind of a significant part, and it is our responsibility to help students and families who need support in those areas. And and again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, back to item number 8, chairs, comments, and items. I guess the thing I'd like to say just under general comments is some kudos and thanks to everyone involved in the writing of the high school SOI. It was unanimously approved last night by the town council. And with certainly great thanks not only to Doug and the school team, but certainly to Town Administrator Mayo and Town Council Chair Peter May, helping to facilitate the town side of that action, and the Town Council. Some of members were there last night. The town council had some good, thoughtful questions for us that certainly we're going to be spending some time on in the coming months thinking about. But the really good news is we have come to that next point. So just, I guess, a thank you to everyone involved in that piece. Under some a couple upcoming agenda items, I guess I'd like to say tomorrow evening, just a reminder to all, tomorrow night is WEF's Celebration of Learning at the middle school. So certainly those that may have that on their calendar, certainly it's a great annual event that we all always look forward to. And we certainly thank our friends at WEF for all the work that they do in ultimately doing nothing but contributing and supporting the great work of the schools. But we are the beneficiaries of hours and hours of volunteer labor. So we certainly owe Wakefield Education Foundation a tremendous gratitude. Item 8C, I had sent via email to the members of the committee late this afternoon an email with some notes on it for some of the agenda items under the chair's reports. So I'd like to, and we handed those out as a hard copy as well. When Doug and I were talking and planning the agenda last week, lots of things came up, and in the course of the last couple of days since the original posting got made, we got queried with some good questions, seeking some clarification around things. So as we thought more, we put some more teeth to how could we help to clarify, and then that became a simple, what would have been a simple email to this writing of a memo. So the hope was to be able to provide some clarification around some comments and questions from the members. So hopefully that was received that way. Item number 8C is we have an appointment to make to the town, the Human Rights Commission. The school committee and the town council each appoint members. The members there serve on rotating terms. One of the school committee appointees, her term is up or about to expire. So at our next meeting, we will be making an appointment. So the Human Rights Commission collects letters of interest and resumes, and they do some interviews and so forth. So that is something to be ready for at our next meeting. Okay, item 8D. Discussion around possible amendment to the proclamation of acceptance and openness among our citizens. Just very brief background. Back probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, the Wakefield Clergy Association and the Human Rights Commission got together to sponsor a community vigil in recognition of some of the horrific religious intolerance events that were going on around the world at the time, great terrific acts of violence targeted against peoples who simply because of their faith. It was a wonderful event. I know many of us were there. Doug and I had the pleasure of being part of the speaking program, but it was quite well attended. It was a wonderful event that came together. And on the heels of that, I got an opportunity to meet a gentleman, a couple people actually, our town residents, but the gentleman who was an official from the Islamic Council of New England. This gentleman in particular is not a Wakefield resident, but he was joined by other Wakefield residents. And we struck up a conversation. He had some very interesting things to say, very engaging things to say during his remarks at the microphone that night. And this then led to a sort of a bit of a rolling thunder about a larger conversation. Town Council Chair Peter May and myself read the proclamation that was adopted by the town council, the school committee, and human rights commission as part of some open and proactive things that the town had done. And from that, within a day or so, we had got a couple of inquiries if we would be willing to consider amending the proclamation to include some anti-Muslim bias and Islamophobia. That is certainly all too prevalent in our society today. Certainly, there was no intent to exclude that from the from the proclamation when we had drafted it back in the fall, and then it was adopted at, you may recall, at the joint meeting we had up at the Walton School on December 4th. So with that, that's sort of the very brief background there. And so I certainly was something that I, as chair, felt open to. I reached out to Greg as the initial author of the proclamation at the time, and our colleagues both on the town council as well as the Human Rights Commission were certainly open to such a discussion. We put together some language. We got some points of reference and some referral, data from the representatives of the Islamic Council of New England. And we have before us this evening a revised or an amended proclamation. It was as part of the attachment received by email, but you also have it in hard copy here at our station. The additions that we are interested in making or recommending be made are in blue on the document. So that is sort of by way of introduction. I'd like to see if Greg would like to add to that. Greg?
No, I don't think so, Tom. Thank you. You presented a good summary. I think, as you mentioned, the intent. If you remember, my original catalyst, if you will, for drafting the resolution was especially a series of anti-Semitic crimes, if you will, in the Reading public schools, and we wanted to show some solidarity. But as we know, Wakefield's experienced some anti-Semitic graffiti and other incidents over the years as well. But certainly wanted to make kind of use that opportunity to make a statement of values, and I think this is the kind of thing that should be an ongoing dialogue. And there's racism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Muslim bias are sort of three pillars of the kind of thing that we're trying to prevent and fight. So I think the language as complementary language to our original resolution, I think works pretty well, and maybe gives some of our Islamic citizens here a way into this conversation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the language that we have, as you see in a couple of instances, but we simply add into some of the sentences, I'm Islamic as a phrase or a point of a reference by including data references to the Council of American Islamic Relations. There is a new paragraph. I guess I was thinking I was thinking whether we should read or not read, but we probably should read the document if we're seeking to introduce it as a whole. Could I impose upon you, Greg, perhaps to read the document for us?
Yeah. It's from the town of Wakefield, a proclamation of acceptance and openness among all citizens dated April 9th, 2019. Whereas it is the policy of the Wakefield Public Schools to prevent, quote, harassment and discrimination based upon race, color, sex, age, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, limited English proficiency, disability, or housing status, end quote. And whereas several school communities in our state and nation have experienced multiple incidents of racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-Islamic graffiti and hate speech targeted at vulnerable students, and whereas anti-Semitic and anti-Islamic incidents are on the rise in K-12 schools, with 93 reported incidents occurring in Massachusetts in 2017, according to the Anti-Defamation League and the Council of American Islamic Relations in 2018, and whereas hate crimes in general have risen for 2 straight years, and since 2016, anti-Muslim assaults have exceeded those reported since 2001, according to FBI statistics, and whereas the Wakefield Public Schools and the town of Wakefield, through awareness and education, seek to expand and enhance our community's acceptance and openness to all people, and in doing so, extinguish instances of anti-Semitic and anti-Islamic behaviors and racist speech, and whereas the Wakefield School Committee, the Wakefield Town Council, and Wakefield Human Rights Commission wish to publicly demonstrate solidarity with our neighboring schools and communities in condemning racism, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim bias, and all forms of hate speech. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Wakefield, through the elected and appointed members of its school committee, town council, and human rights commission, stands firmly with the students, parents, educators, and citizens of our state and nation to reaffirm our message that hate has no home here, and be it further resolved, as duly voted by each public body, that this resolution be shared with school and municipal leaders across our region to strengthen our collective fight against racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all forms of discrimination.
Thank you. In the memo, I had attached a motion. Mr. Callahan, could I ask you to?
Yeah, I move that the December 4, 2018 document entitled Proclamation of Acceptance and Openness Among All of Our Citizens, that was endorsed by the school committee, the town council, and the Human Rights Commission, be amended to include new language as presented. I further move that upon a vote of the school committee that this amended proclamation to be forwarded to the town council and the Human Rights Commission with our recommendation for their adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Members? No discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Next, item 8E, discussion on the establishment of a youth commission. This item is brought forward by member Ann Fortier. Ann?
When I presented along with Julie Galvin at Parent University, one of the individuals who attended our presentation, Elizabeth Parson, had asked us about establishing a youth commission in our town. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. Let me investigate. And then I asked Tom if he would bring it about on the agenda, and he allowed us to. So I sent around a I'm not even sure what this is called, actually. I guess it's a Mass General law that if a town wants to establish a youth commission, there's certain things that need to happen, and there's some parameters around it. And then as I investigated more, it seems as though establishing a youth commission is actually, it seems like it's under the purview of the town, in terms of maybe the town council. But that was after I had the agenda item put on, so I thought I still wanted to bring it up and see kind of what your thoughts were as school committee members, whether you folks thought that this would be worth investigating. Personally, I think it would serve the Wakefield youth very well, having a youth commission. There are a number of other communities in Massachusetts that have one. And really, it allows the children and young adults in the communities to be involved in the town or city affairs. Kind of segues into this civics education. It would provide a lot of leadership opportunities and real hands-on work for students who are interested, or youth and kids in town who are interested in sort of learning more about town affairs. But I guess more importantly, it would be really their sole priority would be to advocate for the youth of our town. And I think a lot of us sort of think that we are advocates for the children in our town, and I certainly do, but I'm not between the ages of 13 and 18, you know. I live with them, but, and so I really think having a body like this would be beneficial, but I'd like to, you know, sort of hear what the others of you think about that. And kind of what, if any of you who've been around longer than I would have any ideas about how to sort of propel this to town council, if we decide that that's a good move.
Do you have any specific examples as to like what other towns are doing?
Well, Salem was the first community in Massachusetts to establish a youth commission, and basically it's what their mission statement is, provides an advocacy and information platform for youth representatives to be more engaged in city issues, helping to recommend new programs and events, craft initiatives in partnerships with other city boards and departments, local nonprofits, businesses, suggest new ideas for policies or regulations for the city to consider. So, you know, it's sort of like, what is it like to be a youth in our town, and what are their needs? I think we can sort of, I think as adults, we often sort of look at how do we protect them, or, you know, we're a little afraid that these sorts of things are happening, and what should we do to kind of intervene, or, but which I think we need to do, but I also think that there might be other things that the kids in our town might want, you know, that they don't really have a venue for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really not school related.
No, turns out it's
yeah.
more, it would be a commission, you know,
Yeah.
that would probably, I suspect might be overseen by town council or town manager or something like that.
Sounds like a great idea, because you do forget what it is like to be 14, you know, and they probably have some really great ideas that that are not even, you know, crossing our minds, so. Something to look into for sure, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could even maybe sort of involve like the youth action teams, or, you know, that sort of thing might be a really nice group to be part of this as well.
Chris?
Thank you.
I guess I might suggest that, you know, if you want to spearhead this, I would contact the town council and get on their agenda with a proposal and offer to, you know, to work with them and establishing this commission, and then it could be decided through that channel, you know, what the makeup of the commission would be, whether it would be similar to other things we have, where you'd have, like the Human Rights Commission, we have so many from the school committee, so many from the town council, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It
That's a
sounds
great
very
idea.
similar in structure in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe the mission is different, but the structure could be similar. But I think your first step would be to get on their agenda.
Great idea.
Yes, Greg?
Another thing you could do, you know, Ann, I'm glad you mentioned the role of civic learning and participation. Remember when we had the forum on civic learning, and one of the ideas that Doug had was having a conversation focused, you know, actually organized and focused by the young people in the community about their own civic lives, you know, and what you know, how they envision themselves as young citizens or emerging citizens. And it never happened, unfortunately, but maybe this is a way to jumpstart that conversation, because, yeah, I
Jason
totally,
Davey
right,
Could absolutely
exactly, yeah.
be a
yeah.
person that could help.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, that phrase, youth agency, right?
Right.
They feel like that they're able to kind of, there's so many things that they can contribute to our community. They just need an avenue, or
Right.
we need to give them that space. So this really has a lot of potential for that. So you might, while you're doing what Chris suggested, which I think is right, we might create some kind of opportunity for the kids themselves to be able to give you input on how it might take shape. I don't know what that method is, but something to think about too.
Yep, great, thank you.
Any other comments? So, and let me just thank you for bringing this forward. It's wonderful how an idea can be so organic at a conversation at Parent University, and then takes on a life of its own and sprouts to something really, really helpful and beneficial. So it seems, if I could take a leap and say that you've got some good consensus around the table for some supportive thoughts.
Yep.
And if you're reaching out to town council, or if there's anything that I'm sure any of us can do, I'll volunteer myself. Don't hesitate to reach out to us to be supportive as well, to accompany you if you choose, or however you may want to sort of spearhead that. But it seems like a wonderful opportunity that we aren't yet taking advantage of. So.
Great. And I do want to just let everyone know that Elizabeth Parsons, who's the person who brought this up, has done quite a bit of research on her own and forwarded a lot of information to me. So she has been really terrific in sort of moving this forward, not just by, suggesting it during this presentation, but really, sharing a lot of information. So she's wonderful.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, item number F. Discussion, follow-up, or recommendations from school committee retreat. This is also part of the memo and with some background. In planning to discuss meetings with Greg, Doug, or Greg.
I'm not talking about me anymore.
I know it. We'll get to that before the night's over, my friend. So, but I often, I refer to notes that we took at our retreat, which I found very helpful, and I think members of the committee have shared that we had a good opportunity to spend a day together and really, so every now and then I refer to notes just to refresh my own memory. Are we attentive to that? Are we paying attention to that? And recently, when I was reflecting on some notes, I had notes that we talked about, and some members around the table brought up the concern that was around some of the timing, around what the first meeting of a newly elected member is like, and it seems sort of hurried, the 24 hours to get to get elected, or probably less than that, really. To get after the party, yes, after the Tuesday night party, you get to run down and see Betsy Sharon, which is always a pleasure at 8 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, so
You still have to do that, even if we change something, you still have to be down there.
So anyway, I just had some notes, and I wanted to make sure that at least as I was paying attention to some of the things that we put as ideas and protocols, things that we sought to change, that we brought forward these for appropriate discussion, especially as it's timely in the next month or so. So with that in mind, the commentary here was around that and was effectively to recommendation from, according to my note. Does anyone else have this memory? Does anyone else have this memory? I know that particularly Colleen and Amy talked about this.
We talked about, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I remember discussing the 24 hours was too close. We had no discussion at all about after town meeting as being part of it, which the way this is written, I think that's gonna be too long a period of time. I think that if, you know, as when I first got on the committee, you know, when we were still driving horses, it was.
Buggy wagons.
We simply didn't have that second meeting of April. And it dragged on till the first meeting in May. And the reason it got changed was that period of time was way too long. Everybody was in limbo. There were times when the new members were almost inundated with calls from people seeking their support for this appointment or that appointment, vote for me, and it was torture for the new member. It went on for 2 whole weeks. So what I might suggest as some sort of a middle ground, rather than, because at the end of town meeting is a moving target. Sometimes town meeting is short, sometimes it goes on for 2 weeks. I might suggest that rather than have our meeting the very next day, that we have it just the following Tuesday. Maybe it's going to be off cycle, but that would give the newly elected members a week to kind of get comfortable without prolonging the process. And especially in the case where, you know, there's bound to be a point in time where the outgoing chair is no longer a member of the committee because they didn't run for re-election.
Well, and you're spot on. One of the things that I wrote in here was
Right.
that this be something we put in play to cover what we intended to do this year, but forward the matter to the policy committee for effecting something
I
on a
still
more
think,
permanent.
I think town meeting, tying it to town meeting is still too, you don't know what, that could go on for weeks. I think we should just delay it 1 week and have, like in this year, we would, instead of having a meeting on the 24th, we would have a meeting on the 30th.
I didn't find any appointments on April 24th,
Sorry.
2019 at 11 a.m. Shall I create it?
Well, so
different perspective.
So you're available. According to Chris's calendar, Siri says you're available both nights, apparently.
You know, I shut it off, too. But
So others? Anyone else?
And I know this is discussion before a motion, but it kind of affects what the motion would be.
No,
So,
of
you know.
course. Anyone else?
I do feel
Amy?
like, thank you. I feel like just having experienced it, Tuesday you're elected, Wednesday it was a whirlwind, where you really didn't know, at least I didn't really know what was going on that Wednesday. But yes, maybe a 1 week after for the regular Tuesday, that's reasonable to me. I think it's a nice amount of time for someone to readjust.
Well, and then, I'm sorry.
Yep, I'm done.
No, Ann, sure.
I'm sorry. Well, I was just thinking, you know, like, I remember I didn't even get the packet until a couple of hours before the meeting. So I don't think I was all very prepared or even helpful, you
Right.
know, at that point. So give you time to
Yeah.
catch up, read
Absolutely.
the packet. And then are you thinking that at that point then we would elect chair and vice chair and that sort of thing, or?
Mhm.
I think it's
I mean,
reasonable.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with the concept, I'm just not agreeing with the proposed timeframe. I'm just saying, make it 1 week after the
Yeah.
election.
Yeah, no, I get, part of the tying it to something was in my thinking with regard to, you know, how you craft a policy. Sometimes you tie it to another event, like it was originally in the existing policy, it's tied to the town election. So now we just tie it to something without a date certain. Town meeting is certainly not more than 2 weeks, and this covers both the two-week periods. But, and, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm bringing this forward because it was something we discussed and something
understand.
that should be attended to before we get too far, further along. It's all right, okay. So, do you want then to amend what at least the written motion and to change the date from May 14th to April 30th? And read
This
it?
year, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the rest of the motion then sends it to the policy subcommittee for
Okay.
permanency.
yeah. That's what I would like to do. So I'll read that motion, then we can discuss it, I guess. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I move the annual election of school committee officers for 2019-2020 be held on April 30th, 2019, as is the first regular school committee meeting.
Well, that
It
doesn't work
will-
anymore.
As the first regular school committee meeting following the spring town election.
Yeah, there you go.
I further move that this matter be placed before the policy subcommittee to begin the process for adoption of a more permanent policy.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Colleen?
I just have a question. So in prior years, we've had town election, and then we've met the day after,
Yeah.
and we've voted in our new vice chair and chair, and then town meeting is usually about a week later,
Yeah.
give or take. And then our new chair would be the one who's responsible for commenting if need be, right, at town meeting?
Typically, yep, as the, spokesperson.
Okay.
But typically, I'm sorry,
No.
typically it's the superintendent's presenting our budget. and
right.
The chair doesn't usually have to.
That's what I was
Have
wondering,
much to
if is there a lot of opportunity or need for the chair to come up
No.
where
No.
you felt like it was more important for the chair that had been in place for that year speak to
Yeah.
budget or whatever, or if it really is just a superintendent who's presenting and we're not really, or the
Well,
chair's not really involved?
so that's, because part of my rationale in adding the tying it to town meeting did have to do with, the role that we as elected officials play at town meeting. There are certainly some instances where it would be appropriate for the school committee chair or school committee members to speak. Sometimes probably all of us may need to speak, as it's a particular issue that, becomes something now, all of a sudden, it's more politics, which the superintendent is not supposed to be talking about. So there is a role for the school committee chair, outside of the normal sort of four corners of the budget presentation.
I can't remember the last time it happened.
I can.
Oh, I can remember plenty
I'll
of
tell you,
times.
the first time I was chair, I did have to get up and present the budget, which was very, very controversial at the time. The school department and town hall were very far apart on what the budget should be. And I got up and presented a very controversial budget. And that discussion would set off a whole snowball.
But it does happen.
It happened.
Yeah.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
There are times when the superintendent should not be in a spot
Right.
that is incumbent upon us as elected officials.
Yeah.
But I have no, real depth to that, other than, other than putting it out there for discussion.
Thanks.
Any other comments? So a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Very good. Item number 8G. We are moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, right?
There's only
There's
20 more
se-
letters in the
only
alphabet.
17, that's right, we're getting there, We haven't even used them all. Item number 8G is a reaffirmation of the April 4th vote that we took with regard to the Wakefield Memorial High School SOI. There you go.
Oh, I was thinking, I have no problem doing this, but my question is, does it affect our submission at all? Has that been sent in?
Done.
Well, the submission is dated April 9th.
Yeah.
I don't see how it would affect it in any way.
So it's the original vote that's going in with the SOI, or this vote is my question?
Well, the SOI has already been submitted
Done,
after
so-
town council's
Yes, that's.
approval
so
last
this is-
night.
This is just a reaffirmation.
This is a reaffirmation of a vote that we took last week, yes. And with the intent to be, frankly, to seek unanimous consent. All members were not
Right.
present at the time, and we certainly would love to be able to extend to all members to be able to,
That's fine, I just don't want to get in
Stop.
trouble.
oh, you won't get in trouble, Chris.
So, have be resolved that having convened in an open meeting on Tuesday, April 9th, the school committee of Wakefield, Massachusetts, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority a statement of interest form dated Tuesday, April 9th, 2019, for Wakefield Memorial High School located at 60 Farm Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future for a new or renovated Wakefield Memorial High School. Priorities are, number 2, elimination of overcrowding. Number 3, presentation of the loss of accreditation. Number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems. And number 7, replacement or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide a full range of academic programs consistent with the approved state and local requirements. And hereby fully specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the the town to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously, 7-0.
7-0.
Okay. Item 8H. Also, in reference to the memo, item 8H has to do with sort of the next steps. We've been talking about this really at every meeting, I think, at least something with regard to the processes moving forward with regard to the high school project. Some of the really crisp conversations and ideas that came out of the forum that we held, one of which was the establishment of a working group of volunteers to get together between now and the end of the year, so we don't lose any momentum that we've been able to generate in the last couple of months, specifically since January, when the MSBA first told us we would not make it into the last round. With now the school committee solidly behind the process, as well as town council, the thought was to move forward and put together a working group that would be able to discuss some of what I called at the meeting, some of the if-then statements, what happens here, what happens if this works or that doesn't work. Plus, to be generally prepared for what we all, positively think will be a good outcome. But obviously having some realistic conversations about all alternatives as well. So with that in mind, I'd like to put forward tonight to begin that next step, to keep that momentum chugging along. Chris, could I ask you to read the motion?
Move the school committee approve the establishment of a high school working group for the purpose of promoting the school district's needs regarding building improvements, renovations, or new construction at Wakefield Memorial High School. I further move that the school committee direct that the superintendent and committee chair propose a composition, mission, and timeline of work for this high school working group for review and action at the April
30th.
school committee meeting.
Second.
Discussion.
I just think we need to be really clear that this is not to be confused with a galvanized type of group, that we are prohibited from doing any political movement, and I don't want anybody to think that that's what this is. Certainly, the high school project is going to need that outside group, but the school department cannot be actively promoting political stuff. So, when it comes down to any sort of votes or that kind of thing, and we're not there yet, but that has to be a totally separate group.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And in fact, one of the things that, in thinking about this and talking with Doug and others, we were thinking that also the exact opposite is just the case, that the next rev of the galvanized movement doesn't have the political capacity to make some policy-related decisions.
Right.
That we would seek for alternatives in being able to have access to school district resources, the town resources that this group might be able to. It's not so much of an advocacy group as it is as a research body.
Okay.
But no, that's an excellent point, Chris. Thank you for raising that.
Research in it, oh, sorry. And I was just going to say,
Greg?
research, the other research I was thinking in public education, right? It's about raising the, I think as I'm reading into or inferring from the language, it's about identifying the issues that are important in this process and informing the community as those issues are raised, right?
Yes.
Right.
Highlighting needs.
Yeah, thank you.
Highlighting the
Yep,
school
yep.
district's needs.
Yep.
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 Any other discussion?
Do we have a second?
Do we have a second?
Okay.
We do? Greg seconded it? Okay. Okay. Seeing no other comments, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. And there was no 8I. So we will move.
Is there a queue? Is there a queue?
We will move along to superintendent's reports. Mr. Lyons.
Thank you very much, Mr. Markham. Just general comments. Thank you to the school committee for the support in writing the SOI and kind of submitting the SOI. Your help has been much appreciated, and your feedback and guidance has been significant and really helping us kind of get this done. I also need to thank town council and the town administrator, Steve Mayo, for coordinating his vote and getting all of that, kind of all the information squared away for the SOI, getting it signed, and it was successfully submitted today. So thank you. This is also timely because as part of 9B, an update on facilities, Michael Pifferling was, one of his comments, he was going to talk about the capital budget and planning. And so I'd like to ask Bob Shiroli, our new Director of Facilities, to come up to the table just to give the committee an update on capital budget and planning and kind of where we are and what's been prioritized. And I know several members of the committee have met Bob on the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee, but if you'd like to introduce yourself to the committee, that would be great.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Bob Shiroli. I'm the new Director of Facilities here for Wakefield Public School Systems. I look forward to working with each of you, and it's been a pleasure, and thank you for the warm welcome since I've started 3 weeks ago. So I guess we'll dive into the capital improvement projects. You guys should have in front of you the forms. There's 3 attachments. Back in November of 2018, the superintendent presented the school committee with the capital improvement requests for the 2020 fiscal year. On attachment 1 is the proposed capital improvements that this committee approved. So I'm sure you guys are all well versed on that. And then I'll quickly go through Article 2, which is what was approved by the town council. So if we go through real quick, the high school HVAC rooftop units, we have $15,000 that was approved. 15,000 for high school windows, 40,000 for tile floors in specific locations. $100,000 for a second boiler at the Dolbear School, last updated in 1999. $95,000 for a new sprinkler system. I understand that the fire chief is very excited about this. It'll bring the school up to state code. And along with that, $26,000 to upgrade the fire alarm panel to go along with this sprinkler system. On the next page, there's a playground rubber surfacing equipment that was approved by town council. It's actually for $192,950. So that was bumped up to be an actual audit. That's on the Parks Department, I believe. $75,000 for the high school walk-in freezer and refrigerator. That's gonna be upgrades that are to the existing, and it's also gonna be mechanicals on the roof that help run the fridge and freezer better. $7,500 for a new dishwasher at the Dolbear. $13,500 for a PA system upgrade at the Dolbear. Currently, there's some spotty service in the school in that area, mainly in some of the hallways, the cafeteria, when lunch is going on, in the gym. So we're going to look at putting new speakers, so in case of emergency or when announcements are needed, all the students and faculty can hear. And then $7,500 for a new dishwasher at the Woodville. And on attachment 3, these are all the proposed capital improvements that did not make the cut through town committee.
I think that was, should be, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Callahan, I believe that you had asked for this in the last meeting, what from each tier did not make the capital plan. So
Yep. This is exactly what I was looking for.
So, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Town council
No, it's-
selected?
No, it's the town capital
capital
plan
plan.
committee.
Okay, all right.
We're still juice involved to all the boards.
They bring
There's
the-
several of them in this town.
I know. I want to add another one.
I'm still trying to figure it out. You don't add up
Let's get a little more government. All right.
Well, they bring the capital plan to the town council, which then votes on it, though,
No.
correct?
I don't
Town
know
meeting.
that, I think that it's
It goes
again,
right
town
to
meeting.
town meeting.
Oh,
Similar to our
they just
budget.
review it like they review our budget, but they don't vote on it.
Right.
I'm not sure if
Thank
they
you.
vote on it.
Yeah.
Town
The
meeting.
FinCom gives.
FinCom
no
does give a
action.
Town meeting.
recommendation.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
apologies
just make
for
sure.
that, yeah.
No worries.
Can I add on to that just a little bit?
Please.
Part of our capital planning was also around technology, and since Mr. Weiner couldn't be here tonight, I'm just reporting out that as part of Todd Bowden's presentation to the town capital planning committee, in his numbers, they're not broken out by school or town or DPW or anything like that. It's 15 projectors for the high school, for the school district, and some number of, we originally asked for 500 plus wireless access points. They're gonna do that next year, we think, so there are enough to just get us some upgrades this year. I think it's under 20. But it's just enough for us to have spares in case anything breaks down. But trying to get on a cycle where all of our APs, our access points, are on our same renewal cycle. We bought a bunch in the first year, bought some more in the second year. Galvin was built in the third year. So we have a cycle where we have different expirations on our access points and the service plans that go with them.
Do they wear out like a computer?
No, but it gives us more buying power, especially if we want to ever change a system. Right now, we're with Arrow Hive and it works wonderful. We're very pleased with it. But if we ever wanted to move to a different system, where all of our, we're in third over 3 years, it's hard to make that switch. It's not like a computer where we can go Dell this year and HP with next year's purchases and, Compaq the year after. Compaq's still even available?
They're not.
Yeah,
I
who
don't
knows?
think good company anymore.
But
Yeah.
whatever.
You're dating yourself.
I am dating myself, yeah, exactly. We're just trying to get on, it was a strategy that we get all on the same plan for all of our access points to expire at the same time, the service contracts on them to expire on the same year, so that if we decide to upgrade to a different or the same product, we had more buying power. considering we have over 500 of them in the district. But I just wanted to add that little piece, but good job.
The only comment I had is that I'm disappointed that the recommissioning at the Galvin didn't make this list, although I'm not sure, in retrospect, that we shouldn't have included it just in our regular budget anyway. That maybe doesn't seem like it's a capital expense. It seems like more of a maintenance expense to me.
Yeah, Chris, I could speak a little to that. I did.
'Cause I think we'd save a lot. I think we'd save what we spend.
Yeah, I did meet with Rick Stinson and discuss some of these items, and that is one of those items that at the capital planning committee, he did say that they deem this as a non-capital project, and this is something that should be every 5 to 7 years, a thorough deep dive into the HVAC units at the Galvin, and that's something that we can plan in the future and look at possibly getting the preventive maintenance study and survey as well as recommissioning.
And I do believe that barring no major construction projects this summer, we could parse off a portion of our extraordinary maintenance, which is intended for things like this, not reoccurring every year expenses. They're once every 5-year expenses or once in a lifetime expenses, but we could parse off some money out of our extraordinary maintenance line next year.
Well, I have to wonder also with, we're expecting to have some activity at the Galvin over the summer. Is that going to not require we recommission things anyway, with the amount of dust that we might get in the air and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so through our discussions with Bond, we are currently looking into what the plan is going to be, and they have said whatever the official decision is, there is a way to minimize the dust within the system. We will shut down the HVAC units in those certain areas, so they're not pulling dust into the units in the air system.
Okay, thank you.
Colleen?
Just kind of, reminder for the, we submitted 2 SOIs, they're called expedited, maybe, for the roof at Walton and.
For accelerated repairs.
Accelerated, yes. So at Walton and also at Greenwood, and so it's a question mark on here on the request. And I just was looking for a reminder when we hear from them, and then, sort of, if we don't, I know we were thinking one of the other would be approved. Sort of what's the next step in terms of, we don't go to town meeting with a separate warrant for one or the other. So just.
I think we do.
We do?
In November. If we
Okay.
get, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If we were accepted into the Greenwood or the Walton Accelerated Repair Program, it would be either in November or even next spring town meeting. There'd be a lot of work that would need to be done. MSBA will only fund a portion of that accelerated repair. We would need to fund the remainder. So it would be either be a fall or a spring.
Okay, so
town
we
meeting.
still need to wait, and then, based on the answer, we'll then decide what we do in the fall.
And we did hear back on the Greenwood early May. I don't have the specific date off the top of my head right now, but early May, they do want to conduct a walkthrough to
Okay.
look at the Greenwood roof.
Great.
Oh, good. That's a
I
good
thought it was
sign.
today.
Yeah.
May
I thought it
2nd.
was today.
Thanks, Mike.
May 2nd.
Oh.
No.
Super, thank you.
Thank you, Bob, I appreciate it, and so Bob is correct, but May 2nd, MSBA will be coming out to kind of walk the facility, and look at the roof, which is what we are seeking, the repair funds for. And so the next steps for us would be to figure out, we'll find out in June if we are accepted into that grant process. And that is a separate statement of interest compared to the high school SOI. So that's an important piece. And a school system can apply for more than one grant in a given year. So we've applied for 2, one for the high school and one for the roof at Greenwood. And we also submitted a secondary for Walton. But it looks like we've prioritized Greenwood and they're moving forward with Greenwood. So.
Good.
What's that? Thanks, Bob, I appreciate it.
Yes, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. And welcome.
Sorry to keep
Welcome
you so
aboard.
late.
Thank you for your patience, Bob. Much appreciated. So just moving on down the list. So just to keep everyone up to date, we've gotten several questions about how we are maintaining the high school. You know, are we spending good money after bad if we're making repairs? And so there is this. So just to be clear, we are required to fix leaks. We are required to keep the building clean and up to date as we possibly can. There are some things, you know, in regard to mechanical systems that we're not replacing, but we are doing maintenance, and we are cleaning, and we're keeping the building habitable. As part of that work, we're also doing, I mentioned maintenance, we're also going to be doing some environmental and air quality testing. And so Bob is going to be collaborating with the DPW and also with the teachers in the building to find some different spots in the building that we'll be testing the air quality. We do know around the art areas where the kilns are, there's a lot of dust, and so we're going to be looking into that. We're going to be looking into kind of how heating and cooling is working, and also kind of what the ceiling tiles are, you know, looking like. Are they kind of, do they need to be replaced in regard to moisture or anything, dust or anything like that? But we just want to take an environmental look. And again, this is not uncommon, and to be honest, air quality testing is done with some regular periodicity, which we have fallen behind on, so it's timely. And so Bob will be working, and again, collaborating with the DPW on that. And as that comes closer on the calendar, we will be getting information out to the community or teachers, students, and parents about that as well. And so, moving down to D, our mental and behavioral health supports. You heard from Jen and Andrew Cedrone. Really appreciated them coming tonight. And I think with the approval of the committee, I think we'd like to invite them back in the fall to hear a little bit more about the work that they're doing. I think it's really invaluable. And then that's it for that piece. And then moving down to E, we've provided not 3 job descriptions, but 2 this evening, in the hope that the committee could take a look at those, and we can discuss them and possibly make a motion to accept the new job descriptions, or they're not new, updated job descriptions for the high school department coordinators and the K-4 literacy coaches.
You want the motion first?
Please.
Okay, move the school committee approve the job descriptions of literacy coach and Wakefield Memorial High School department coordinators as presented.
Second? Second, discussion.
I have
Mr.
questions.
Lyons. Or do you have more to say, Doug?
No?
No? All right, Chris?
Just 2 things, because, you know, these came this afternoon, so I would have asked you earlier, but could you highlight how they're different than what we have?
Sure.
And help me understand the overlap between the department coordinators and the curriculum coordinators, because it sounds like a lot of coordinating, but, you know.
Yeah.
I want to really get a better understanding of the difference between those roles.
Yeah, so the department coordinators, so there was a lot of overlap, and there still is a lot of overlap. They work in collaboration with one another. They plan professional development, they work on curriculum together. The curriculum coordinators do more kind of coaching and PLCs. They're doing more learning walks. They're a little bit more closely related and connected to the instruction and coaching piece, as well as the technical aspects of the curriculum review cycle and when we adopt new curriculum. The department coordinators at the high school are working with their departments, okay? And so the reason that we've updated these, Chris, is because we are going to, we want to try to create some specific kind of boundaries as to what we want department coordinators to be doing more, and curriculum coordinators to be doing more and less of. So in this particular document, you'll see that excuse me, that they'll be collaborating, they'll be collaborating with curriculum coordinators, administration regarding hiring new faculty. They'll be kind of supporting teachers with parental concerns. So they'll be kind of helping teachers and onboarding them and bringing them up to speed and supporting them in all that they do in their day-to-day instruction as well as their lesson planning. And so the other part here is that we're gonna ask that they teach 4 classes and have a scheduled ASC, which will be a change. And so in regard to your change question, that is one of the changes that we're seeking to make. And again, just to really update and kind of be clear about, who manages instructional resources, who researches and orders instructional research, instructional curriculum, right? And so that would be kind of a distinction between the two, right? And so if the department coordinator is kind of managing materials, making sure kind of people get what they need on the day-to-day, the curriculum coordinators are bringing in new curriculum, researching new topics per the curriculum review cycle. So that's a designation there.
And if I wasn't a coordinator, would I have 5 classes plus a duty?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ann?
I guess this is sort of a follow-up to Chris's. I still am trying to figure out the need. It just feels like kind of a lot of layers. So what it seems like is maybe historically we had department coordinators.
Correct.
And then we had curriculum coordinators.
Correct.
But I wondered if we did it the other way, like if we had curriculum coordinators first, would we then need department coordinators?
It's a great question, and I think there has been times when there has been overlap, but one of the things that I can't just emphasize enough is how extensive bringing new programs is for the curriculum coordination piece, and also being a department head or a department coordinator has changed dramatically in the last number of years, right? And so, they're not just running department meetings where they're getting together and just, it's not just, they're not just getting together just to meet. They're getting together to talk about assessments. They're getting together to share practice. They're getting together to collaborate on student growth. They're getting together to look at data. They're part of the instructional leadership team at the high school. So the department coordinator roles has changed dramatically as the number of mandates and expectations around, performance and really providing students with the most current materials and instruction has changed. And so, I hear what you're saying, but, these two people, when we see our curriculum coordinator and our department coordinator work well together, right? To see Rob Rousey and Jason Pavey work well together, we've seen them co-present. It's, we're at a point now where it's almost like we think we couldn't do without either one of them, right? In regard to what they do and, the close work that Rob does with teachers and kind of the PD work that Jason does for 5 through 12. So it's really, to see it done and to see kind of a clearer articulation, I think is just an important piece. There's always going to be kind of areas of gray that we're gonna need to figure out and work through, and they're also gonna need to, the people in the positions are also gonna need to work through that based on their personalities and their experiences. But this is just a start for us, just to more clearly delineate expectations and kind of the roles, right?
And so if they're teaching one less class,
Yeah.
how does that impact the rest of their department?
We're staffed for it already,
Okay.
so it's not a big change. It's what they're currently doing now, right? And so our numbers are such that, and AJBB schedules in a way that our numbers across the board in the high school are really, class sizes are very good. So very manageable, I should say, but yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's one thing, one difference I think I see is that the curriculum coordinator, a big part of their job is actually to be in classrooms coaching, but that's not the department coordinator's job, right?
Correct. Correct, and it's not that they won't do that together at times, but it is a primary function and a secondary function.
I was just, if you,
Oh, please,
if you
go.
don't mind,
Yeah.
Tom, yeah, I was also going to add the curriculum coordinators are also working at a higher scale in terms of planning, right? It's across years in some cases, right, through these curriculum cycles, and they're also working at all levels of the system, right, aligning. Right, so that's another distinction, right?
So the curriculum
Yeah.
review cycle is a 6-year cycle.
6-year cycle, I was trying to
So,
remember.
you know,
Yeah.
so they're kind of researching and kind of piloting in the early years, then they're adopting.
Right.
And they're kind of managing that, then they're kind of collecting data around assessment and student growth.
Yeah.
And so it is a higher level, when I don't mean a higher level in regard to position, I mean just a different kind of lens.
Different chronology, if
Right,
you will.
right,
Yeah,
right.
How many, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, it's a thing.
How many curriculum coordinators do we have?
5.
5. And I guess where I was going, sort of a follow-up to Greg's point is, and they are district-wide, the curriculum coordinators,
Correct.
whereas these positions are just department heads or department coordinators at the high school.
Correct.
And they presently exist, and it's a redefinition a bit of the expectations that they are. So these are already, these aren't new positions.
No.
They're teachers in the system already, Unit A members, who in some way are like receiving a stipend to do this work.
Correct.
It's not another salaried position either in the budget or,
Right.
this is a redefinition, if I'm understanding correctly, of
This-
the job and the job duties.
Right, I would say more of an update than a redefinition,
Yeah,
but
update,
you're
fair
spot
enough.
on.
Yeah.
It's not a change in salary, it's a budget neutral.
So I think it's important to know, this is where I was ultimately going, that we do not have curriculum coordinators that are either of the number or building-based. It's a district-wide curriculum coordinator.
Correct.
To look at curriculum across all schools, all grade levels, which is in sync with even the budgetary work that we had done now probably 5 years ago when we began the curriculum review cycles and started to put into the permanent base of the budget $250,000 a year.
Correct.
To turn over curriculum within those cycles.
Correct.
So that's critically important work that they're doing district-wide, which is not just building-based in the high school.
Correct.
As these positions are.
The coordinators were designed to be 5 through 12 positions. And so I think, you know, they're realizing very quickly that they need to know what's happening ahead of 5. For example, Jen Thomas, her kind of job description is 5 through 12, but she spent the entire year this year doing professional development in the 5-part series with K-4 teachers that are piloting a new science curriculum, right? And I'm sure that moving forward, all of our curriculum coordinators, you know, their roles will lead them down to elementary as well, so.
Oh, Amy.
So the big difference between the two is that the department coordinators are teachers and they have interaction with students. And the curriculum coordinators don't have any interaction with the students, they just directly deal with the teachers.
Their job description, their curriculum coordinator's job description states that they can teach 1 class.
Okay,
You know, it's very difficult to do in their schedules.
okay.
But I think that we may have some that kind of may flex back into that space.
Nice,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Doug on these two job descriptions? Department coordinators and literacy coach? Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Doug, you will, at a future meeting, bring forward STEM coordinator?
Yes.
Great, okay. Any other items under the superintendent's reports?
No, sir.
Oh, Arjun.
Can I just ask something slightly off topic? Just because I might not have the chance to ask you again, Doug. When I saw a literacy coach, kind of made me think of what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, in my opinion, there's a growing importance to financial literacy classes and life skill classes. And I just want to hear you talk about the savings bank presentation or class that happened recently and sort of if there's any plans. I think like it's a great idea to kind of help the kids create pretend budgets for after high school and college, and obviously the topics go on and on under that. So just kind of want to hear a little bit to that if you don't mind.
Sure. We were exchanging email, RJ and I, and he was asking about financial literacy, and I had shared the Credit for Life fair that we had, which down in the gym, the field house, which is really just a spectacular event, and it's eye-opening for students who will come down. They kind of, there's a big drum where they roll, and you select a number and you're given information, and the information is the criteria by which you need to live and kind of buy and be an adult, right? So I want to purchase a car, I need to get insurance, I want to rent something, and they'll find out like their credit score is 820. So they have a
Or
really
400.
great, or 400. and so, but they'll, and they learn very quickly, what does it mean to purchase? What does it mean to lease? What does it mean to get insurance? And how do I make my student loan payment while also trying to pay my rent? And I know it's kind of a real-time exercise, and there are just too many volunteers from the town council, from the savings bank. There's just adults from across the town that really just make this happen for kids. But it's just a wonderful activity. But that is a culminating event of financial literacy that they learn here at the school. And so, and one of the big questions for us is, can this happen at younger grades? Because I think we're really seeing a need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months or years.
Are we still doing that 6th grade project, or is that stopped?
I'm not sure
We
which.
should go up to New Hampshire. I don't remember the name of it.
Oh, yeah.
Enterprise City.
Enterprise City, yeah.
I'm not.
We did that for
familiar.
years.
We haven't done it the last 2, I don't think.
No, we
Yeah.
haven't.
We did it for a long time. It was 6th
I think the
graders.
8th
went up, and
graders
it was
now are
exactly
the
what you're
last
talking about.
class.
Yeah.
who's done it.
Yeah, I think I'm not familiar with the project, but
They may have gone out of business, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Enterprise City themselves are closed.
Yeah.
That's ironic.
Not so much of an enterprise.
Appreciate the attention on it though, Doug. Thank you.
no, thank you for the
Good
question
stuff.
and for
Yeah.
the email.
So,
Yeah.
Very good, okay. Subcommittee reports. With the drum roll, for the last time, ladies and gentlemen, the chair of the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee.
Jeez, I can't recall if we had we haven't met since
All
our-
that buildup, hang on.
So
I think we're having one Monday before
it's a
town
late
elections,
hour,
right?
yeah. We haven't met since
Tuesday
last
the
school committee
23rd,
meeting,
it's,
so.
yeah.
But it's been a great pleasure to chair the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee, so leave it at that.
Okay. Labor relations, just to say negotiations are continuing. We are in earnest, as members of the subcommittee know, and we're meeting upwards of 2 to 3 times a week these weeks. And progress is being made across the board, so just to stay tuned there. Policy and communications, Chris.
At our last meeting, I asked for people to contact me. I didn't hear from anybody, so I should have reached out, and I did not. I would like to propose that we meet next Tuesday, the 16th. I believe that is Amy and RJ. I'm not, policy?
Possibly. I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think you, okay.
Don't worry about it.
What's gonna happen if you guys show up? You gonna send them a note?
It's gonna be, I think the work we have to do, we should be able to wrap up in one meeting. We have like 3 or 4 items, and I think.
We've now just added one more to your plate.
Yeah, I was including that. Like 6 o'clock, does that work?
It's school vacation week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Okay. So, Judy, could you post that, please?
We'll make it work.
1 week from today, 6 PM, Superintendent's office?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about the agenda tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Student services, Ann,
We haven't met.
okay.
We haven't met yet, no.
Very good. Item 11, future agenda, future dates and agenda. Next school committee meeting will now be, as we decided, Tuesday, April 30th. So there will not be a meeting the night after the election. Tuesday, April 30th will be the next meeting of the school committee, at which will be the reorganization, election of new officers and so forth. Town meeting begins the night before that, Monday, April 29. Okay, any other future items or agenda topics members would like to bring forward? Okay, item number 12, school committee comments. Going around the table. Can I go to Colleen first?
Sure. Yeah, so I think we've all recognized, or at least have in our head, that it's our last meeting with RJ and Greg. So I just wanted to wish them a farewell, and also just, it was great spending my first year on the committee with both of you. Really respect the work that you've brought to the table. And RJ, I think you have a great fresh approach.
Thank you.
You know, you obviously have youth on your side. We do, well, you know, but you bring a fresh approach that maybe, you know, is I say that respectfully. They all know. So I appreciate that, you know, in tune to the students and where they're at. And Greg, even before I was on the school committee, you've been someone that I looked up to, a mentor, and someone that I've appreciated watching and learning from. So I know that we'll still be in contact, so I appreciate all your work.
Very good. Amy?
Same as Colleen. The first year of the school committee has been quite the experience, and you know, I just want you both to know that I've learned a lot from both of you, and I highly respect your service to the town and to the Wakefield Public School System, and I really do respect you both and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Ann?
I'm gonna miss both of you on the school committee. You always, both add a lot of insight, and as, I guess as Colleen said, fresh perspective. You know, I think that's a really good descriptor of RJ. And Greg, you're probably one of the most articulate and thoughtful people I've ever met. So I just, I'm sad to see you both go. We'll miss you both. Thank you for being a part of it.
Chris?
It's basically the same types of things. You know, RJ, you've always tried to relate any conversations we've had to when you were actually in those that position, and not yeah, like it was last week.
I wish.
But yeah, you've tried to always keep that perspective, and I've appreciated that. Greg, you are one of the most thoughtful people I know. You really, yeah, You think deep. You must have an awful lot of time on your hands.
I'll have more.
Here comes Socrates.
But it's been a pleasure. You've always been someone to be able to count on and give a counter view, or at least a bouncing board. And I've really enjoyed our time, and I'm sure we'll continue on our other committees.
Yep, we will. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Doug?
I'd like to say thank you as a first-year superintendent. I think you guys have been terrific members of the committee and really wonderful and kind to me. So it's interesting. Your styles are similar in some ways in that you take it in. And when you're passionate about something, you jump right in. You ask questions to seek to understand instead of leading with a declarative statement. There's usually a kind, thoughtful ask, and so I think that I hope we can continue that style to kind of and live up to what you've established. So I really appreciate it. Thanks.
RJ?
So, I've been honored to be able to serve the public and do what I think is right for the people of Wakefield and the kids and the faculty. And in particular, I'm really proud to serve my hometown and the community that I grew up in and give back to my community that kind of served me growing up. So I think we accomplished a lot, as a team these past 3 years, and I really enjoyed coming up with ideas and solutions with all of you. I think we have a great superintendent. Doug, just keep doing what you're doing. Great guy, and you do an excellent job. So as for the school committee, I think we have a classy group here, and we know how to compromise and stay civil, and I think that's needed much more in government these days. So let's just continue to do the right thing, and I'm looking forward to watching. And I want to thank everyone very much and the people in town. I truly do appreciate it. And Greg, thank you very much for your service. I think it's extremely clear how much you care about the people of Wakefield and the kids. And I think you had a great sense of understanding and listening, and I've always appreciated that. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg?
My turn, all right. Well, likewise, RJ, I really very much appreciate your collegiality and the time we've spent together and the different perspectives that we've brought to the committee. I just made a chance to reflect a little bit. First of all, thank you all for such nice, warm, and generous comments. I really, really very much appreciate it. I think about 6 years ago when I started, it was actually 7 when I first got involved and started to think about running for public office in Wakefield. I was so inspired by the Galvanize movement and the civic engagement that came through that, and the inspiration around the community and being invested in its public education system. And even though my kids didn't go through the Wakefield Public Schools, it was clear that this was a community that was poised to take a new step in supporting and investing in its public schools, and that has always been sort of my guiding light, and it's been just a tremendous pleasure to be part of that. It's a lot of work. I think we all bring to it different skills and capacities and backgrounds and ideologies, if you will, but when we sit at this table together, we sit at it as equals, right? And with mutual respect and admiration for the work that we do, and that's just been a tremendous gift, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity and for all the people in the community that have given me that opportunity to serve for 2 terms. And I mean, Colleen, you were talking about the forum with Senator Lewis and how appreciative you were about all the things we've accomplished, the things we heard tonight about social and emotional learning, and it's easy to take all the things that we've accomplished together for granted, but as I'm thinking about the next phase of my life and my career. I'm deeply grateful to live in a community that supports its schools and supports its kids the way Wakefield does. And so I'm going out on a very high note. And I will say I definitely want to stay involved in the campaign for Wakefield Memorial High School. I think that's such an important, it's such an important decision that the town is going to be coming to together, and I want to be part of that as a private citizen. So thank you all again. I really, really appreciate it, and I'll miss these meetings. But I'll try some other things, maybe Tai Chi, something like that.
Well, if I may just add everything that our colleagues have said around the table is certainly, well thought and entirely appropriate. Wakefield is better off for having the both of you have served on this board. Thank you. Wakefield will be at a loss without you. Others will fill your shoes, as people fill all of our shoes, right? But it has been a pleasure and a unique experience to be able to work together, have some real collegial, appropriate and fun conversations, but always focused on kids, always focused on achievement, always focused on making our tomorrow better than our yesterday. And that's sometimes the baby steps and sometimes the big steps, but we have always had that forward thinking among the 7 people that sat around this table, of which you two have been a big part of. So I've enjoyed your company, our relationship and friendship. One thing that came to mind in thinking about thoughts, really certainly about both of you, was inquiry without predisposition, and that to me is really a thoughtful approach to the work that we do. We all certainly have opinions, we have goals, and but at the end of the day, part of our work as a group of 7, never mind the complementary work for outstanding staff, is that we get somewhere together. And that doesn't lend itself well to lots of predisposition. And that's something that I've really enjoyed and really come to appreciate with both of you. Very well missed, but please stay in touch. We will. I'm sure we'll all stay in touch. We'll put you to good work.
Thank you.
For all the things that we won't be able to do for all the politics.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyways, the community owes you both gratitude for your work and your service, and thank you very much, and Godspeed to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
The last motion of the evening, Mr. Callahan?
I move the school committee adjourns its meeting of April 9th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Good night, all.
Thank you for the
And thank you very much.
Appreciate it.